Today I want to talk about the Pac-12 and how its football players are trying to flex so that they are included in these conversations about how they're being cared for, how well they're being cared for, and how much money is still out there. And all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. So it's college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, we're going to dive into Pac-12 players putting out a list of demands, or they might opt out playing the season. And among those players is Jevon Holland, a safety at Oregon and projected first-round draft pick, and Penei Sewell, who might be the best non-quarterback available in the 2021 NFL draft. And I want to dive into that. I'm going to read aloud from this story that they published in the Players Tribune with their demands and unpack just what we're talking about here and how likely they are to pull this off. I also wanted to alert you that, hey, I still have these stickers that I'm trying to get you guys. I only made 250 of them for the first folks that want them as we approach the 50,000 subscriber milestone, which is a big deal to me. It's not a big deal on YouTube. There are lots of people with 50,000 subscribers, but this has been a really cool journey, and I am addressing envelopes. Like even today, I addressed like 40 to you guys, and I'm putting them out in the mail. So be on the lookout for that. There's a link in the description below if you want to get a sticker. All right, so what we have here is a failure to communicate on the part of Pac-12 officials, athletic departments, and student athletes, because during this time of the COVID, where we've seen so much get thrown into upheaval, so many things stopped, one of the things that has said is just going to keep going on is college football and college football at large. And while we've had lots of conversations about what the conferences are going to do, how they're going to conference-only scheduling in 4 out of the 5 Power 5 conferences, although I do expect the Big 12 to announce it's going conference-only on Monday. We're uploading this on Sunday afternoon. I think that the voice that has been missing from all this is the one that I advocate for the most, right? Which is the players themselves. And I talked to a few kids across the country in the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12, the SEC, and a couple here locally. But I asked them just to go on background with me and tell me what they think about this. And they all support what is going on in Pac-12. They just don't see where you get the leverage, right? Because it's not even an underrepresented group. It's a group that doesn't actually have any sway in its sports, college football players. We're talking about $10 billion industry at some point that they get none of, and we're trying to tell them that a scholarship is worth them sacrificing their health and safety in normal times, right? Head injuries, knee injuries, hip injuries. And this is supposed to be an expected trade-off where the highest paid commissioner in all of college sports is in Pac-12, Larry Scott, who is crippling the Pac-12 at a time when they're trying to renegotiate some network contracts, even tried to pay the LA Times to give them more favorable and extensive coverage. And now you have players at your defending conference champion football program, Oregon, saying, we might opt out if we don't get these demands. And we've seen a number of players voice how they just don't like how they're being treated during this COVID. Matter of fact, in the Washington Post, Robert Klemko and others reported on these conversations that players had with medical professionals in the SEC saying, look, we don't feel like you guys are going to make this safe for us. We don't see how this is going to be safe, especially with players on campus, with students coming back to campus, to which a medical professional told them, we're going to have positive COVID tests. There's nothing that we can really do about it. And that is unconscionable, right? To say that you're just planning on it. Now, we could talk about the NBA bubble and how that's different, but I need to start with this. They got a players association. They have a players association. They have a players association executive. They have a president, Chris Paul, Michelle Roberts, working in concert with the league to make sure that thing goes on. You don't have any representation at all as a college football player. And trying to get those things together in a sport that cycles kids in and out every 4 or 5 years is really difficult, especially across 11,000 FBS players from just guys that are on scholarship, right? Let alone the guys that are walk-ons. In the NBA, you're not looking at those sorts of numbers. You're looking at 350 players, right? So you have a lot of problems here. And that's why I think that this is a really great gesture, but they're going to have to throw their backs to the wall on this thing to make this happen, right? Which is to say, you're going to have to sacrifice a lot. And it's worth it because you'll make it better for the folks that follow you, but you will not necessarily make this better for you right now. This is going to go hard for you. Just as anything goes hard for anybody who's seeking change. We're at this time in life where a lot of people are having lots of things to say about John Lewis, who is civil rights royalty and one of the big six in the civil rights movement. It's also a man who got his skull cracked open on a bridge in Selma, Alabama, so that he could get the rights to vote. All right? Like, you're talking about risking life here, especially if you're playing in the COVID, which means you could contract this thing or you could give it to your family or your friends and they could die. We're talking about a disease that's killed more than 150,000 people in 6 months. 40 people had died of COVID in the United States in about March 11th. Now we're up to 150,000, and that's after we had locked down the place and asked everyone to wear masks. And now you're looking at college football players who are being told, you're going to play 10 conference games so that we can get this money coming through, and they're going to go, one, we don't see any of that money, and two, how are you going to make this place safe for us? There's like over 100 of us on each team. And conspicuously in this list, right, didn't see any players from USC, didn't see any players from Utah, but we did see, again, Penei Sewell and others. And I want to read from the Players Tribune right now the essay that they published where they say what they want and why they want it. So let's go to that. The essay is titled, "We Are United." It begins, "To ensure generations of college athletes will be treated fairly, hashtag we are united. Because NCAA sports exploit college athletes physically, economically, and academically, and also disproportionately harm black college athletes. Hashtag we are united. In rejecting the NCAA's claim that hashtag Black Lives Matter, while also systemically exploiting black athletes nationwide, hashtag we are united. Because we are being asked to play college sports in a pandemic in a system without enforced safety and safety standards and without transparency about COVID cases on our teams, the risk to ourselves, our families, and our communities, hashtag we are united. Because we must have adequate COVID testing to help protect our health, hashtag we are united. Because we are prohibited from securing representation while being asked to sign documents that may serve as liability waivers, hashtag we are united. Because we should not be stuck with sports-related medical expenses, including COVID-19 related expenses, hashtag we are united. Because any player who does not feel comfortable playing this season should be free to opt out without losing their scholarship or any eligibility, hashtag we are united. Because immoral rules would punish us for receiving basic necessities or compensation for the use of our name, images, and likenesses, while many of us and our family are suffering economically from the COVID-19 fallout, hashtag we are united. Because we should be included in equitably sharing the revenue our talents generate, especially in a pandemic, hashtag we are united. Because unjust rules prevent the 98% of college football and basketball players who won't go pro from capitalizing economically on what would otherwise be the most valuable years of our lives, including many black players from low-income homes, hashtag we are united. Because eliminating lavish salaries and facility expenditures to preserve all sports must be prioritized, hashtag we are united. Because the NCAA has failed us and we are prepared to ensure that our conference treats us fairly, whether or not it continues its NCAA membership, hashtag we are united. In forming alliances with college athletes from other conferences to unite with us for change, hashtag we are united. Hashtag we are united in our commitment to secure fair treatment for college athletes. Due to COVID-19 and other serious concerns, we will opt out of Pac-12 fall camp and game participation unless the following demands are guaranteed in writing by our conference to protect and benefit both scholarship athletes and walk-ons. They go into their list of demands, right, to protect both scholarship and walk-on athletes. Number one is health and safety protections. One, allow option not to play during the pandemic without losing athletics eligibility or spot on our team's roster. That is what the NCAA is saying and what many conferences are saying. You can opt out without losing your scholarship. We'll see about a roster spot. Number two, prohibit void COVID-19 agreements that waive liability. That's a big one. And then moving on to state safety standards, player-approved health and safety standards, player-approved, enforced by a third party selected by the players to address COVID-19 as well as serious injury, abuse, and death. Then protect all sports. Number one, Larry Scott, administrators and coaches voluntarily and drastically reduce excessive pay. That might be a non-starter. In performance academic bonuses, in lavish facility expenditures, and use some endowment funds to protect all sports and preserve all sports, like Stanford should reinstate all sports discontinued by tapping into their $27.7 billion endowment, which is hard for a number of reasons, not the least of which is a lot of that money is not liquid. It's tied up in other assets. Okay? They want to end racial injustice in college sports and society. Number one, form a permanent civic engagement task force made up of our leaders, experts of our choice, and university and conference administrators to address outstanding issues such as racial injustice in college sports and society. In partnership with Pac-12, 2% of conference revenue would be directed by players to support financial aid for low-income black students, community initiatives, and develop programs for college athletes on each campus. Form annual Pac-12 Black College Athlete Summit with guaranteed representation of at least 3 athletes of our choice from every school. They want economic freedom and equity, right? Medical insurance selected by the players for sports-related medical conditions, including COVID-19 illness, to cover 6 years after college athletics eligibility ends. They want the freedom to secure representation, receive basic necessities from any third party, and earn money for the use of their name, image, and likeness rights. They want fair market pay, rights, and freedoms, distribute 50% of the sport's total conference revenue evenly among the athletes in their respective sports. That's a huge one, right? We'll get back to that. 6-year athletic scholarships to foster undergraduate and graduate degree completion, elimination of all policies and practices restricting or deterring our freedom of speech, our ability to fully participate in charitable work, and our freedom to participate in campus activities outside of mandatory athletics participation. Ability of players of all sports to transfer one time without punishment, and additionally in cases of abuse or serious negligence. Ability to complete eligibility for participating in a pro draft if player goes undrafted and forgoes professional participation within 7 days of the draft. Number 6 is due process rights. And then we get to the big rubs. One, giving up the money is going to be a non-starter for so many of these coaches and these administrators, not just because they don't want to give up the money, but because there's a standard of living that we have allowed college football coaches to make. Matter of fact, Lincoln Riley just re-upped a contract extension that's going to see him coaching at Oklahoma through 2025 and make about $7.5 million annually over the course of that contract extension. This is at a time when, in his third year at Oklahoma, Barry Switzer made $24,000, right? You adjust that for inflation in today's standards, you make $150,000. Lincoln Riley makes $7.5 million, okay? There's a lot of money out here, and I've been saying this for a very long time, and you know that on this channel, I've been an advocate of players being able to make money off their name, image, and likeness, right? Which is to say jersey sales. If you want to put them on the front of a media guide, if you want to sell their posters. One of the things that Oklahoma traditionally does during a non-pandemic year, right, is allow kids to come up and get autographs from the players. They stopped adults from doing this because they would get these autographs from players and then put them on eBay for a lot of money. Landry Jones signing a football is worth some money. Sam Bradford signing a football is worth a lot of money. And on it goes. Now, I believe that a lot of this is not going to get done. And I think that the guys in suits have the money to outlast the guys who put on pads. And what we have seen in lockouts at the professional level and what we've seen in strikes at the professional level is that owners will just wait you out. And in this way, conferences act as owners. And they'll even hire scabs to come and take your place because they're not going to give you any leverage in a negotiation they don't have to give you. There's a lot that would have to change for the players to accomplish even half of this stuff. But this is the first step toward accomplishing those goals. You have to have a unified front. You have to have one message, and you have to have nobody break ranks. And we've seen that adults can't even do this. Major League Baseball players were crappy about keeping to themselves what they thought or how they felt when Tony Clark was trying to negotiate the return of baseball with Rob Manfred. The thing that makes the NBA so good is that Chris Paul is able to help the players unify their message. Even when Kyrie Irving tried to do this offshoot tangent thing over here, it was Kyrie who tried to do it. And, Kyrie ain't the dude that anybody wants to necessarily follow in the battle. Meanwhile, Chris Paul is actually a statesman. This is a dude who was class president for 3 years in a row in high school and is still responsible for putting together things like their reunions in high school. He's built for this in a way that few are. So I applaud Penei Sewell and Jevon Holland and others in the Pac-12 for doing this. But with fall camp having started for many last Friday, I am really interested to see how far this goes, especially as the Pac-12 is not scheduled to start playing football until September 26th, like the SEC. Oklahoma is supposed to start playing August 29th. And as far as me talking to other players, especially in the Big 12 and whatnot, they want to play football. And I think the kids that are threatening to opt out want to play football. They also want to know that they're being taken care of and not taken advantage of. And that's how this feels right now, is that they're being taken advantage of at a time when everybody stands to lose something. All right. Appreciate that. That's it for me.